Welcome to this comprehensive breakdown. Look, if you're a safety professional, a project manager, maybe an HR director, or you're just grinding through your OSHA 10 or 30 exams right now, you already know the drill. Navigating regulatory frameworks usually feels like a one-way street of strict compliance and heavy-handed enforcement. But today, we're looking at a totally different approach. We are going to deconstruct the OSHA Strategic Partnership Program, figure out its core architecture, and uncover exactly why industry leaders are voluntarily inviting federal regulators to sit at their table. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Introduction to OSHA Partnerships. To really wrap our heads around the OSPP, we first have to recognize a massive shift in thinking. For decades, American occupational safety was basically a command and control operation. You know, they set the standard and then they rigorously enforce it. But I want you to consider this. What if OSHA wasn't just an inspector knocking at your door, but an actual partner in your safety journey? This is a huge pivot, or moving from a strictly enforcement-only mindset to one of proactive prevention and collaboration. OSHA realized a long time ago that their limited resources just couldn't physically reach every single workplace in the country. They desperately needed a way to multiply their impact. And that realization is exactly what birthed the OSHA Strategic Partnership Program, or OSPP, back in 1998. Simply put, it's a collaborative program where OSHA works directly with employers, employees, trade associations, and labor organizations. The ultimate goal here is to improve safety and health for a very clearly defined scope. That could be a massive construction project, a specific geographic region, or honestly, an entire industry segment. It basically brings all these historically separate groups together under one formal, unified agreement. Now, if you take away only one foundational concept from this explainer today, it should be this. OSPP exists to prevent incidents before OSHA ever needs to cite them. Let me just repeat that so it sinks in. OSPP exists to prevent incidents before OSHA ever needs to cite them. The whole point is building a system so rock solid that the old school mechanism of penalty-driven compliance just becomes a backup safety net, rather than the primary thing driving workplace safety. Section 2. The primary purpose. So how exactly does this program pull off such an ambitious goal? We can really break its primary purpose down into 3 distinct pillars. First up, proactive hazard elimination and reduction. We're talking about going way beyond just doing the bare minimum to stay out of trouble. It's about hunting down the most serious, high-consequence risks, like the fatal 4 in construction, and stopping them dead in their tracks. Second, continuous improvement. And third, building a stronger safety culture through mandatory worker involvement. Let's actually look a bit closer at that second pillar. You see, OSPP isn't just about putting out fires as they happen. It's about building a highly effective safety and health management system from the ground up. They use the tried-and-true plan, do, check, act cycle. Employers plan their safety protocols, they do the actual work of implementing them, they check the data and injury logs to see if things are actually working, and then they act to improve the whole system. What's cool is that OSHA actually rolls up its sleeves and assists employers in developing this system, ensuring those safety benefits stick around long after the formal partnership agreement is over. But here's the catch. None of those systems will work without our third pillar, worker involvement. Under an OSPP agreement, getting your employees actively involved is not some optional bonus feature. It is absolutely mandatory. Workers can't just be handed a safety manual and told to read it. They have to be in the safety committees, they've got to help with hazard analysis, peer-to-peer training, and building real feedback loops. Why? Because the frontline worker is always the one who truly knows where the hidden hazards are actually lurking on a Tuesday afternoon. Section 3. Key benefits and rules. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would a company voluntarily sign a multi-year, legally documented agreement with federal regulators? Well, for employers, the benefits are super tangible. By teaming up, employers get direct access to OSHA's top-tier technical expertise. This helps them set up structured improvement goals without that immediate stressful threat of an adversarial inspection. This naturally leads to better overall safety performance. And if we're talking business outcomes, fewer incidents literally means a massive drop in absenteeism and way lower workers' compensation costs. In fact, a lot of CFOs will tell you this proactive approach to safety is a massive driver of their overall organizational productivity. And the perks definitely extend to the employees and the agency too. Workers end up getting highly targeted training that's tailored to the exact hazards of their specific job site, which obviously means a much higher focus on keeping them protected. For OSHA, this is basically the ultimate leverage. Instead of sending an inspector out to 50 individual small subcontractors one by one, OSHA can partner with one major trade association or a general contractor. They can efficiently influence an entire network of work sites all at once. Okay, let me stop right here and bust a massive myth. OSSP does not mean OSHA won't inspect you. Joining this program is absolutely not a get-out-of-jail-free card or a blanket exemption from enforcement. OSHA still has its statutory obligations to uphold. If there's a formal complaint, a chemical spill, a fatality, or any sort of catastrophe, OSHA is going to show up and inspect. On top of that, policy revisions have made it crystal clear that new OSSP agreements cannot offer programmed inspection exemptions as a carrot to join. The focus is strictly on safety improvement. Now, sure, participants might receive good faith penalty reductions or get more focused, limited scope inspections, but that's only if they're holding up their end of the bargain. Section 4. OSPP versus VPP. With all the different cooperative programs out there, it's incredibly easy for students and safety officers to get them totally mixed up. So let's do a really quick comparison to separate the OSPP from OSHA's other heavy hitter, the VPP. The Voluntary Protection Program, or VPP, is an excellence recognition program. It is strictly site-based, and to even get a foot in the door, your safety metrics must already be sitting well below the national average. Basically, VPP recognizes existing greatness. The OSPP, though, is a goal-based partnership. It's the middle ground. It is designed for companies or groups that are still developing their safety systems and want to tackle specific hazards collaboratively. Also, remember that while VPP is tied to one specific physical address, OSPP can cover massive multi-employer projects or an entire industry segment. Section 5. OSPP in action. To truly grasp the scale of the OSPP, we need to take this bureaucratic theory and drop it into reality. Let's look at our first example. A massive, multi-contractor construction site. Think of a new downtown high-rise or a huge professional sports stadium. On these mega projects, you've got one general contractor and literally dozens of separate subcontractors pouring concrete, running electrical lines, and erecting steel. An OSPP agreement takes all these different moving parts and puts them under one unified safety umbrella. They start using a shared safety dashboard, they do joint job site inspections, and they standardize fall protection rules across the whole site. This guarantees that a guy working for a tiny 10-person subcontractor gets the exact same high-level safety protections as the main developer. For our second example, let's look at high-hazard industries, things like chemical processing, power distribution, or logistics. In a scenario like this, OSHA might skip the individual companies and partner directly with a national trade association. By doing this, OSHA and the association can sit down together and analyze injury data from hundreds of different member companies to spot emerging risks. Then they collaboratively develop best practices and specialized training modules that get pushed out to the entire industry. It effectively standardizes life-saving protocols across a whole sector. Section 6, Shared Ownership and Conclusion. As we wrap up this explainer, let's bring it all back to the big picture, the overarching philosophy that makes the OSHA Strategic Partnership Program so unique in the world of federal regulations. The critical takeaway is this: OSSP proves safety works best when it becomes shared ownership, not just compliance. When management, labor organizations, and federal regulators stop treating each other as adversaries and actually start acting as allies, the result is a systemic, proactive approach that genuinely saves lives and stops injuries before they even happen. It proves that going beyond the bare minimum of the law isn't just the right thing to do. It's a brilliant business strategy. Now, you know how OSHA operates when everyone is playing nice and working together. But what happens when things go completely off the rails and enforcement is the only tool left? Want the other side of the coin? Watch our OSHA violations breakdown next to understand the exact mechanisms, penalties, and citation types OSHA uses when compliance totally fails. The regulatory landscape is slowly shifting from punishment to partnership, but making the choice to collaborate is ultimately up to leadership. Will your organization step up to the table, or are you just going to wait for the inspector to finally knock at the gate? If you want to learn more about workplace safety and OSHA rules, subscribe to HSE Study.